Okay, let's get started. So today is the second class and also the first session of the economics in this class. So we are going to use two classes today's and also next. Today is Thursday, right? Okay, next Tuesday we will have two sessions on the economics of green buildings. Today is the first one. So a little bit of recap. In our intro session, we talked about why we're going to study green buildings and what's a unique feature of this class compared to other sustainability classes. And remember, we talked about the triple bottom lines. So when we talk about climate change and sustainability, we care about the planet, which is carbon emission, how to reduce carbon emission, and how to better improve the quality of life, for example, healthy buildings and all these people's well-being. But then we also have the third bubble here, the PPP, right? The third bubble is a profit. This is important because we cannot just say we are going to do good things for the planet and for the people, but we are keeping losing money. So that doesn't work, and especially it won't work for the private sector. It's very clear for all the building stock in cities, more than 80% of the buildings, they are supplied by the private sector. So that you must remember that we need to incentivize the private sector to supply those sustainable buildings and cities. So then this is basically our focus or our perspective for today's lecture. How to make a business case for the green buildings. That will be, remember the big picture. I have this big picture for the entire course. So the fundamental driving forces of this sustainable real estate from these end users of us end users, the blue individuals, from the user's perspective, from the space market, and then also from these individual investors, also of us, from the capital market. So this is money, that is people, and basically the point is if they want to live and use, and if they want have a higher willingness to pay for green buildings, from the user's perspective, either office or residential, then you have a better cash flow. That's a cash flow. Remember the pro forma is a cash flow, then you have a higher this NOI, and then you have a higher NPV. That makes sense for a business. Or from the capital market, if those individuals, they really want to make impact investment, they want to invest in ESG, which aligns with their value, then they will push, they put their money in the pension fund, in the insurance, then they will push those institutional investors to put money in greener areas investment. And then they will further push those market key players that to invest in those green real estate. So that's the idea of the sandwich story. The sandwich, we have the upper level of individuals, lower level of individuals. They push the middle layer, which are those developers and investors to go green. And today we are going to start from the upper level. The upper level means those buildings, right? So this is today's focus will be a building, because a building is a fundamental basic element of the entire thing. So we look at the building and we look at the cash flow. So that's a position. So when we look at building last session, in the intro session, remember Zhengzhen provided some examples at the beginning as a motivation, right? So several, like Davis company, they build some buildings, some are not green at all, some are, there's lead platinum, some are lead gold, like that. And that's a very good story that even for one developer, not always from the heart, say, all the buildings I'm gonna build will be green buildings, will be like the perfect lead platinum. They always have their own considerations. Those considerations will be changing over time and in different market context. So I'm gonna tell a similar story of this big developer here. It's Millennium Partners. So this Millennium Partner is a big developer. I'm not sure. Maybe some of you know this developer. Anyone know this developer? Please. Yes, Millennium Tower where? Boston, right? Yes. Anyone else who knows this developer? Oh, please go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, they're a big developer across the country in Boston. They have a number of high-profile luxury condominium projects and some other projects. The big one is right now is their passive house building downtown.
Yes. What's the name of that building?
Winthrop Square.
I think it's the Winthrop Center. Oh, okay, good. So this is, as we just now some of you know, this is a very big developer, and they build luxury condos in gateway cities, luxury condos for rich people. So that's their key, their comparative expertise advantage is building luxury condos at very, very good locations, always in the center of the city, in some gateway city, big cities, and many buildings here in Boston. And this is a private company. This is not like public. Private company now they have they already built 2,900 condo units all over those big cities. And they also build luxury hotels and office buildings and retail, etc. So this is like three founding partners and then later partners. They have this $4 billion money in hold, asset in hold. Okay. So this, I have 4 buildings here. As you can see, we have 4 buildings of Millennium Partner. The first one is this one in San Francisco. Do you know the story of this building? Please.
Is this the one that was falling? The foundation system has now failed, and so there's been differential settlement in the foundation, and the building has completely shifted. And it's tied up in all kinds of lawsuits right now by the individual condo owners and company developer.
Yes. So basically, very correct. Although these Millennium Partners, now they are building very green passive house building here. But back to 2008, they built a Millennium Tower as a signature asset of their company. And that time, they never thought about sustainability. Instead, they just focus on luxury condos because they can sell to the rich buyers. And even it's very, very bad news of this building, negative news of this company. As Andy just mentioned, they didn't do a very good design and structural design. And later, because the foundation has some flaws, and started to tilt and sink into the ground. There's a structural problem, but they sold, because they are a developer. They sold this in 2013, I think. But this problem still continued, and they cannot get away from this, and it's a lawsuit, and all go to the court, try to resolve this issue. So basically, this developer, as the beginning, nothing to do with sustainability, and even got into a big trouble of this, just want to make money, then got big trouble. And then another one is this. Some of you know this, they have some luxury condo buildings. And here is 2013, they came to Boston, they built this Millennium Place. And so this is another one. Could you guess, it's also like a game, could you guess at that time whether they said they are going to build a sustainable or green or something like that? This building? You have some idea?
I don't think so.
Okay, so what do you think at that time they marketed this building or they promoted this building? What was the selling point, do you think, at that time will be?
I would say the same as the built like luxury condos.
Yes.
If there was anything else, but I don't think it's going to do it.
Right. So that's why when a developer, they are very rational. They're not going to just for society. Yes, that's true. But always they need to be very, very clear about their own profit, the P bubble. And then at that time, of course, luxury condo always their selling point. But at that time, they need to get this permit from the city, this Boston city. At that time, the mayor, Boston City, is Menino. do you know Mayor Menino for 10 years of Boston? And our very beloved Professor Zheng, he was the chief planner of Boston for Mayor Menino for 10 years. So basically, our Carol's, and that mayor worked together for 10 years and built this seaport area and those places, all the permits. If Carol said yes, then yes, they can get the permit at that time. But how can they get permit? They cannot say, oh, we're going to build luxury condos. Then the city say, that's nothing to do with me. you want to make money. And at that time, this mayor, Menino, he really cared about job opportunities because that's still after some recession. This was finished in 2013, but started like several years before. So it's just the financial crisis and lost a lot of jobs and the recession. So they pitched to the city, say, they focus on job creation and the downtown revitalization. So that was really needed at that time after the financial crisis. And the mayor was happy, and Carol's was happy, and they got the permit and started to build this. So that's nothing to do with sustainability of this company. And then another idea, then they got so successful, they made a lot of money. Then they start to build this Millennium Tower in Boston, finished in 2017. Again, condo, luxury condo. But how they pitched to the market and also the city at that time. It's not about job creation, but another idea. Anyone knows some background of this? It's a huge building.
I guess they're marketing it as the landmark of the city, and they have the best view, the best condo in Boston.
Okay, so you know some story about this? No? You'll guess.
I've heard something about it.
Okay, yes, that's very good. Yes, so basically at that time, I think the permit was issued still by that mayor, the same mayor. And at that time, the mayor really worried about a big hole there. Before the building, there was a very big hole, nothing, and like abandoned area in a very good location in Boston. Nobody can really build something significant there. And then the mayor said, this is perhaps his #1 development priority to solve this big hole area. Who can build a good thing and fill in this place and make this a better place of the Boston? And that's how they pitched to the city. And then cannot just the city and also the buyers. They wanted to get people to buy in and pay money. And then at that time, asked about health and wellness. So this is the largest for that time for entire Boston city. Largest, only residents only those luxury condo owners, they can use this fitness facility and fitness center as a ground floor of this building. So that at that time they understand. I think at that time they understood a very good selling point to the buyers will be this health and the lifestyle and they say wellness. And for the city, they just went to the city and say, we can help you solve this big hole problem. The mayor got happy and they got this. So that's different stories. And then the last one is the ongoing one. Andy just mentioned this. This is Winthrop Center. So it's still under construction. I think they will finish very soon this year. And this will be Zhengzhen's first case that she will teach next week. So that's a Winthrop Center. And at that time, suddenly, they became such an advocate for sustainability, for green buildings. So this one is different from this. Health or wellness is different from this, from job description. Of course, it is from this, from a problem. And their important selling point is sustainability. And they got all kinds of certificates, as many as they can. And the very top level of those certificates. This passive house for the office. This lower part is the office, the higher part is the condo. And WOW and the gold and the LEED, the platinum, all the things they can get. So because they understand at this time, sustainability, climate change is so important. And especially for those, their customers who are rich people. For rich people, they always have many of them, they really care. And they also have the ability to pay for that. So this is what they are doing. So these storylines told us it's not like the developer from the beginning to the end always put sustainability as the first priority, say, no matter what, I'm going to do this. No. They are very rational. That's why we need to understand economics. They are very rational, and they understand fitness center is important for this. Now the sustainability important for that, and jobs important for the city for them to get the permit. So that's the main takeaway message I want you to learn from the Millennium Partners. And then we have a critical thinking. The critical thinking is, for example, if we invite guest speakers from this to our classroom, we will from Millennium Partners who are the developer of this. And if we give you a talk, of course, he will say why. It will have a different story, like me. But he will say always sustainability is so important for them. From the very beginning, they put this in their heart. And it's so important for their company and business. That's partially true. Yes, it's important. But then we need to have a critical thinking. I hope you can ask questions to our guest speaker when he's here. Why? And why in the past buildings you didn't say that? And why you are not saying that? What's the rationale? And how you align your social value and your business value together, right? If there is any misalignment, what you are going to choose? These kind of questions. Okay, so that's motivation of today's class, which means we really need this critical thinking instead of we just blindly to accept this is such a good thing and everyone need to do that. That's nonsense. And then we are gonna, the structure of today's lecture, 2 parts. One is how market may work. Since I always advocate for market, that's true. Because in this classroom, in this MSRD real estate program, we emphasize the market force, the invisible hands make things happen. The invisible hand, demand, supply, the invisible hands make things happen. But we also have this critical thinking that market has limitations, market has failures, market failure is always exist. So I structured this session so that you have this very clear memory that sometimes the market may work. Sometimes the market may not work, right? Market failure. So first, let's be a little bit optimistic about the market and then say how market can work, what's the market mechanism to be optimistic of the entire thing. And then we will talk about several aspects the market may not work and how we can address those issues, right? So that's a structure. Now, again, some questions. So basically, when we talk about market, now we are all market advocates. Market. So let's think about market mechanisms. That's market mechanism. There's no free lunch incentive. Always you need to understand every player's incentive and then behavior. So then we look at the 3 key stakeholders. Now we have 3 bubbles, another 3 bubbles. And let's think about hypothetically, let's say this is the office building. This is the office building, and because office building is an income-producing property, you have a holding period. So we have 3 key stakeholders: developer, which develop and then sell, and then owner, maybe an investor who holds that office building for many, many years, and then tenants, some companies, they come to rent the space. So if we think about all the 3 stakeholders, they are thinking, green buildings, good. I'm gonna pursue green building. And what are the benefits they can think of for each bubble? Some may be intersection. Can you just randomly come with some idea of these there's many elements in different bubbles? And any idea? Because they are different from different perspectives. Any idea? Lower cost of maintenance, operational cost, right? So do you think that also matters for tenant? Yes, right? If tenant need to pay some bills, right? So let's say operational cost, lower. So that may be in the intersection of the owner and the tenant. What else? Yeah, please, Carlos.
For the developer, access to different debt vehicles that, for example, institutional investors that may have mandates of investing part of their endowment in green development or green efficiencies, something related to sustainability, which is very
Good.
common in
So
bonds.
lower financing cost, you are saying, right? If a normal building maybe get a loan of like 5%, and if this is green, maybe get a loan about 4.5%, like that. Do you think that, you mentioned that is matters for developer, do you think that also matters for owner? Yeah, right, intersection. Because developer need to borrow loans, and then when the owner later also need to borrow a debt. So that will be lower financing cost, lower. Any other things? Christopher.
Easier permit for cash blocker.
I'm sorry?
Easier permit.
Easier permit. Okay, that's maybe the story of the Winthrop Center, right? They say, oh, this green, and the current mayor gets so happy and give them permit. So this permit, that's good. Permit, I think, mainly the developer thing. Permit. And here?
Also lower health costs, so maybe if someone's sort of living in a green building, they might sort of have to incur lower health costs in the future.
Health, right?
Yeah.
The health. Then which bubble it will be in?
I mean, it depends both on owner and tenant who are sort of living there.
Yeah, mainly this owner won't live there. This is just remote investors, for example. So will be tenants, right? If the tenants, they really care about their, for example, their companies, they really care about their employees' health. And in such a building, the employee will healthier and happier and work so hard. So that will be health, good. And similarly, maybe also productivity, right? So anyways, less sick days, for example. Productivity. Or increase. Oh, please, you.
To build off that last point about health and productivity, from the tenant's perspective, it could be employee recruitment and employee retention, because employees are happier and they feel more comfortable and
That's very
safe
important.
in the office.
Yeah, talent retention. Rohit?
Higher valuation and rent prices that the owner or developer could command.
Please be clear in which bubble.
Higher valuation for the owner.
Evaluation, the market value, right? Market value. And why the market value will be higher?
It would be a more desirable product because of the benefits on the tenant side.
Yeah, tenants have higher willingness to pay, right? So that means higher rent. So higher rent than higher market value. And another, why just a higher rent per square feet, but other things that can lead to a higher NOI.
Lower occupancy.
Higher occupancy. Lower vacancy. Yes, that's right. So vacancy go down because you are very popular, higher occupancy, and the rent maybe go up. So all this NOI will go up, right? And then market value will go up. Market value will go up good for the owner, and also good for the developer, right? For the developer. So market value go up. Anything else? Please. Yeah. Yes, yes. Maintenance cost. Let's say operational cost, both the utility cost and the maintenance cost. Wilson, you want to say something?
Just want to add up a little bit about the market value. Like nowadays, people are being able to recognize the sustainable and green so stuff ESG factors as a important invaluable amenity of the building. Tenants may want to live in this building because they do value
ESG in the heart. So do you think ESG we put where? This bubble, that bubble, that bubble, or in the middle?
I think it's in the middle.
In the middle. So okay, good. ESG. And what else? Yes. Yeah.
Similar to the Millennium Partners, the marketability of the developer, like the branding of the developer.
Reputation thing. Reputation thing. Is that a reputation thing? But also that also matters for owner, for example. I own like where is the greenest building in the city? Yeah. Good for tenant. Okay, so maybe that's a ESG and reputation.
Longevity of the building, so lifetime, I think that's good for the developer's reputation. The owner who's holding the building is also the tenant.
Yes, so that's still in the middle, right? The reputation and the long-term value. And do you think for developers circle still a little bit not so full? Yeah. Yeah, easier to sell or sell faster, right? Faster and easier sell. Faster sell. Okay, almost there. So faster sell, yes, yes. Because the owner maybe later sell to another one, right? Resell. And also another thing is when you resell, the market value means now and later. So which means depreciation lower, right? Slower depreciation won't depreciate that much. So depreciation lower, etc. Okay, good. So overall, it's almost there. I have some small things, and we covered almost all of them. So still remember, now we are in a very optimistic state. We think, oh, to the very, very best scenario, the best case scenario will be like this, right? So now we are going to dive into all those items and see what will happen and some empirical evidence whether they will be true. We cannot just say, oh, higher, lower, not like that. Empirical evidence. So first of all will be this cost-benefit analysis. And this I don't need to go through, but you learn all this in the basic finance course or economics course. That's still this no free lunch thing, right? Benefit cost, and then you decide whether to go ahead or not. And so that's basic methodology. The key thing is it's not like static view, but it's dynamic view because always the building, we have a holding period of many, many years. That's different from the other products. So you have year T, 50 years, from 0 year to 50 year. So you always need to discount. So that's a unique feature of the real estate, discount, because you need to discount from many, many years cash flow using discount rate R, which is the cost of capital to discount. So that's why you need to understand this dynamic view. To have a very, very precise way to show, I use a hypothetical office building. This is totally hypothetical, but not so fake. We still use the numbers relatively real, and relatively real, I mean, for those rent and the vacancy rate and net operating income, etc. So, but it's easier for us first to look at a hypothetical thing. See, recap a little bit of your finance class or any of this cash flow analysis, engineering, economics class. Let's first look at because the owner will hold the building for many years, I say 10 years. So 10 years, then we have, always you have a pro forma like in this way, remember Excel, like in this way? We have year 0 that you buy. In year 0, you invest and buy that from a developer. That's your year 0. And year 1, you start to operate the building. You start to operate the building. Then now, for example, you have a potential gross income. That's assume that you lease out all the space. That's 50K. And then, of course, you have some vacancy. Then minus some vacancy. Then you get effective gross income. That's your income. Then you need to operate. So you spend money. You spend money on this operational expense. For example, some like bills, energy bills, and you hire some labor to operate the building, and etc. And then you have NOI, the net operating income of this $28,500. So that's the very traditional way. And then you have a capital improvement expenditure, for example, the elevator. You need to really change to a new elevator, all this capital reinvestment, CapEx. And then you have a net cash flow. That's a NOI minus CapEx, right? So that you have this. And then you repeat this over and over for 10 years. Then after 10 years, you sell. You sell, and always we know how we decide on the resale price is assume another owner, the subsequent owner, the 11 year's cash flow, and you see last year 11 years cash flow, and it's to divide by the cap rate at that time. That's a willingness to pay for the subsequent owner to you as a resale price. So you get this resale price. And then you have all the cash flows, you discount. Then you decide on discount rate. Now we assume 8%. So that's a discount rate because you evaluate the risk, and that's your cost of capital. Then you get this NPV. So this is NPV. So this NPV helps the owner to understand if they want to buy the building and how much they are willing to pay to buy this building from the developer, right? So if this NPV is higher than the developer's willing to accept, then they will just buy. Otherwise, they won't buy. So that's a basic idea. Now the point is the following. This is like a baseline. This is not a green building at all. So if this is a green building, and which cells on this pro forma will be affected, and to which direction? Just now we discussed the three bubbles and how these quantitative ideas will affect these quantitative numbers on this pro forma.
There may be a couple of ways. One, maybe the cap rate at the end, there could be a cap rate compression considering you have a green building if you retrofit it, so you have higher value at the end compared to the assets on the market, and also your OPEX might not go at a higher rate as you have in this pro forma.
Okay, so you pointed out that this OPEX may go down, right? Because you have a smaller bills, for example, you use less energy. And then you said this resale price may go up, but could you be clear why it will go up? Which number will go up? Go down?
The sale price at year 10?
Yes, the sale price.
You get the year 11's cash flow, and you'll divide it for a more compressed cap rate, maybe not 6%, but maybe 250 base points, 500 base points even. Just
right.
Because you have a premium on sustainability.
Good.
ESG.
So the cap rate may go down a little bit because lower risk and is more favored by the market, etc., although it has a lower cap rate. Please.
So the potential gross income will increase because the rent price will increase.
Very good.
So we could see will down.
Go down.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's more popular. This is a lower vacancy. Yeah, last one.
I don't know what capex would increase, but I would guess maybe because you have more equipment, let's say solar panels.
Yeah. Don't know, right? Okay, and how about this? This cap rate for now, this discount rate may also go down if lower risk, right? If this building is in Boston City, for example, or in New York City, let's say New York City, because last session we talked about New York City's local law 97. They are so stringent. And then if you have green building later, you know you will pay less penalty to the city, or you will pay zero penalty. But you are bronze building, then you need to pay penalty. So the owner understands the risk, and this is green, so they have a lower risk, and thus a lower capital, lower cost of capital. So I think we cover all. So we talked about this increase of the potential gross income, and decrease of vacancy, and decrease of operational OPEX. And here I'm more optimistic that will be a lower capital improvement expenditure. Later we will explain a little bit on this. And also lower risk, then you have two lower discount rate. So that's how we materialize these impacts of the green building benefit and cost onto the sales numbers on the pro forma, so you understand how this work out. Because of this, then finally, because you are calculating NPV, then will be higher NPV. This one will go up, right? Because all of these changes, this NPV will go up. The NPV goes up, and thus higher willing to pay the owner will say, okay, I'm so happy with this green building. I have a higher willingness to pay, WTP, for the green building. So that's basically the point of this entire circle. So now we have a very, very good diagram here. Is a cash flow, conceptual level cash flow. This conceptual level cash flow will always show up later. So I just want to every time reiterate so that you understand this. So we know 3 stakeholders. I always like to call this the chain process. It's a chain. They're connected. They're a chain process, these three stakeholders. We have the developer. Then we have the investor, who is the owner. Then we have the tenants. Right? Just now I use a pro forma. Then you understand the most important guy, the investor's point, the owner's point, the pro forma. And then let's look at, just now we still show numbers, but let's look at the behaviors. When we talk about behaviors, we will use a way, we will reverse the thing, and we will first look at tenant. Because remember, the green individuals in my big picture, the green individuals in top are users. We need to, from the very, very end, those end users, they are happy in a green building. So they have a higher willingness to pay, right? If they have a higher willingness to pay, this is their higher willingness to pay, then that will be translated to the higher rent that the owner can charge, right? So this is symmetric. This is owner. So this is owner. This part is owner. This part is a developer. This part is a tenant. So the tenant's cash flow out will be the owner's cash flow in. Is that right? Because the tenants pay the rent, and the owner will receive that rent. So the logic is the following. If the tenant has a higher willingness to pay for rent, then the owner will get more higher rent revenue from the tenants. So that's why we start from the end.
What's that last sentence? The tenants have
The tenants have
the what?
a higher willingness to pay for the rent. Yes, we call it WTP. That's a terminology. Later, maybe I will just say WTP. That's a willingness to pay. You are willing to pay how much money? Yes, so this is the willingness to pay. So this is a chain process. If this is longer, then that one will be longer. And then later, that will be further translated to the developer. But let's look at the end user. If this won't happen, if this story is fake, if this won't happen, nothing will happen, right? This won't work. This is the fundamental driving force. Okay, let's look at it. So here is like, then just now we discussed the potential benefits are higher productivity, better health benefit, and easier to the retention of your employees' talents. And also, if you need to pay energy bills, maybe some lower operational cost. So here, let's look at every item. First, operational cost. So you can see that this is from the reading. I think this is also from the reading. I just need to emphasize again. You need to read the readings before you come to the class. I already simplified the readings. Last year we had more readings. Each session we had 2 or 3. Accurate to remember that. Now we understand this. I became more and more realistic of you. So, okay, if I put 3, you will read 0. No, I put 1. So each session I have 1 reading, please read, okay? Please read that. Then they will say, oh, the report is so long. Also, it's 1 reading like this 100 pages, no problem. Glance over that, right? Grasp the main information from that report. Because that report is very important. They show up in that report. So it says, the green buildings have smaller operational costs, and they use some data of all this data of many buildings. They show you the maintenance and operational cost operations that will save money. So we'll save money. And we understand, it's easier to understand that energy and resource savings, for example, you use less electricity, you use less gas, etc. And better insulation. And for the maintenance cost reduction, from the statistics? Not all buildings like that. Statistics are also lower. Do you have any intuition why the maintenance cost may also be lower for green buildings? Any idea?
Variance slides. That formula is right.
Yeah.
Total depend on the tenants need a higher rent. Also, the tenants every year maybe pay more payment about the owning that building.
Yeah.
That actually in some developing country, especially in China, we also know for developer there's very less motivation to build the green building.
Market failure. Later I will touch on that. Let's not believe in market for now. And later I will discuss China. I have 2 papers of China, why this won't work. Then we will answer your question. But for now, let's still believe in believe in market. Now, why the maintenance cost may be lower in some cases?
If there's more electrical systems than gas or oil heated, there's fewer moving parts that could eventually fail. Just like in a car, an electric car has less maintenance than gas.
Good, yes. So basically the system like the building management system or green building system, they have better monitoring technologies and also sometimes smarter because there's new technology and they run more efficiently and with less hiccups. So that's one possibility. And they can hire less people. For example, this building to operate, we need a team of 10 people. Now we may need a team of 3 people because it's more efficient and smarter. So you can just reduce your salary. And also because the lifespan always will be longer for these green buildings because they depreciate less. And then they have less wear and tear over time. Every 5 years or every several years, you need to this capital investment. And then think about this. Think about this who will pay the bills? Who will pay? Yes, of course, when we look at physical building, yes, it will be less. But who are going to pay that? Who will benefit? Who will recoup that benefit of reduced energy bills? So that's a little bit complicated. It's a little bit complicated because that depends on the lease structure. Then next session we will touch on this lease structure, who will pay which part of the energy. So that's different types. But let's see now, without going to the details, let's say they split. Some part of the common part, like lobby and those common space, owner need to pay because it's so hard to attribute to tenants. But for tenants, maybe tenants also need to pay the inside of the space. Okay, so then you will see I have O1 and O2. If you observe, if you look at my cash flow carefully, I have a O1, that's owner's operational cost. We have O2, that's tenant's operational cost. So that's why we have the subscript of 1 and 2. So the owner have this O1, reduce maybe, and tenants have a O2. So the O2 will not directly reflect into the owner's cash flow, but because O2 will become smaller, then tenants save money. If tenants save some money, they are willing to pay higher rent. That's the logic. So I put this channel, this is the middle channel, but the point is they are going to pay higher rent. More importantly, let's look at this pie. The pie is important. I say just now, you also mentioned this retention of the talents, right? This is so important because if I'm a tenant, I'm not a real estate person, I'm a tenant. I'm a Google, for example. You know, Google just rent a big space on the Main Street, very close to Kendall Square. This Boston Properties building. That's a new renovation of the Kendall Square. There's a Boston Properties building. Google just rent all the building. And you saw the Google headquarters logo there. So if I'm not Google, I'm not a real estate company, and then I look at my cost pie, then always the important thing is for a company, energy is so little, 1%, because I'm not like an energy company, right? If I just an IT company, to pay my office energy 1%, and rent 10%, right? 10%, and the rest wage. Wage is the larger component of the cost of the company. And then this is so important, the human capital to a company, not the physical like energy bills or the rent. Yes, rent will be high if you want to have good fancy office building, but here is the thing. And then if you pay money, if you pay wage to employees, and all the employees always get sick, won't show up, all the sick days, it's a loss. You pay money, you pay wage, then they all get sick because the building is so bad. They always get sick, no good. So if you can help them keep their health and productivity, you pay wage, you gain a lot from their productivity, that's good. So that will be more important from the tenant's perspective. And we will have healthy building lecture to dive into this. So, but you understand why this building is good, then not just the direct thing, but also indirect thing, that tenants get so happy and willing to pay higher rent and rent space. Question?
Sorry to interrupt you, Siqi, but I worked in building operations for a long time, and especially when COVID hit, sometimes the human capital, the health and the well-being came into conflict with maintenance costs and energy reductions and savings, specifically looking at the HVAC systems. So recycling the air is a good way to save energy because you don't have to heat it or cool it as much. And then the thing is you're recycling that air so it's not as clean or fresh. So sometimes it's hard to keep going in the same direction with both of these goals. Sometimes they come into conflict with each other.
Very good point. Very good point. So you are saying this ventilation cost and the maintenance cost, they are like trade-off, right? Mm-hmm. You cannot just, save money and save cost, save energy, no ventilation and very low ventilation, but then it will cost more for the healthy part. Exactly. I think that's very clear. It's not like always win-win. It's sometimes trade-off. And if you look at the higher level, that's basically 3 circles, PPP. That's some tension between the planet and the people, right? Mm-hmm. It's not, yes, we want insulation, for example. Insulation is good for energy saving. But we don't want to live in a plastic bag. Plastic bag, bad. We cannot breathe, although it's very good insulation. So that's the idea. Nobody wants to live in a plastic bag. So that's a very good point. And then give you empirical evidence. There's a paper, very good paper. This is a meta-analysis. Meta-analysis means they collect many, many empirical studies from different countries, different context, different data. Then they summarize and they say, okay, for all the green real estate studies, there's so many studies you can see. Overall, they say the studies find a significant rent premium of, on average, 6%. So that's the evidence. You can see this more on the residential side, and 5% on the commercial side. Keep in mind this number, but this is not like a universal, right? It's just those studies, and for the scholars like me, we found some papers. And actually, they summarize all the papers, if you can see, but I'm sure you cannot see. This is one paper called Zheng here. It's my paper. I feel so proud that my paper got into this analysis. That's the most exciting moment of a scholar, right? I published a paper, and then my paper got some impact attention. Then they summarize. They have Zheng's paper here. So yes, so that's my first paper of the green buildings. Okay. Now we talked about just now. Remember, it's the tenants. That's the end user point. Then we move on to the owner. Okay, assume we are so optimistic. Assume tenants are so happy, they have higher willingness to pay for green buildings. Then they have a longer, like this arrow of rent. That rent be translated into the owner perspective. It's a cost for the tenant, but it's benefit for the owner, right? This symmetric thing. Okay, then look at this. Now we look at the owner. Owner is not stupid. They're also rational. They understand maybe higher effective rent, lower vacancy, and higher rent per square feet. And then if we are so optimistic, we think about the operational cost, energy reduction, then this O1 will also become smaller. And then suppose later this will be more and more appreciated by the market. So there's a lower depreciation and higher resale price. So all to the positive side. Higher higher, lower cost. And then we already mentioned that because of some risk consideration, then the cost of capital also low. So then this is a higher than this with absolute value. This will be small. This minus a smaller thing that will be bigger, right? All these are bigger. This bigger. So that's so good. Then that all translates to a higher purchase price. So I'm willing to pay higher price to buy that building from a developer, right? If this is true, then this will be later translated as a chain to the developer's sale price. So that's the point. That's a chain. So now we have this cash flow. We know this one higher, this one higher. And how about the risk? We kind of intuitively, we think the risk may be lower. The I may go down, but why? Can we have some solid examples of why this risk may go down? What kind of risks? What kind of risk you can think of? Energy cost. Why this is a risk?
Because energy prices increase every year.
Okay, but if we invent some nuclear energy things, then energy may be cheaper. But now it's true that's an uncertainty, especially the Ukraine and the Russia war, then the gas are more and more expensive, right? It's a lot of uncertainty here. Okay.
I think there is the exit risk, the risk of not being able to sell the building because it's not as green.
What risk?
The exit.
Exit risk. Yeah. Yes. If you have a brown building, nobody want to buy it, then you get stuck. Yeah. Okay. Policy. What kind of policy?
Government may impose higher tax in the future.
Sure. You want to say?
Yeah, it's the same.
Policy. Yes. So now we have a big category of policy, regulation, and we also have something. Let's see. So basically, we have 3 baskets. I'm not sure whether it's can cover all, but at least the big baskets. First, policy risk. For example, Local Law 97. We have this also in Boston and Cambridge, as you know. And market risk, like get stuck, cannot sell if you are so brown, right? You got, and if the market really value the green buildings, then green buildings, no matter whether your premium, remember 6% premium, but if you are so brown, you may have a brown discount, right? Brown discount. So if all other your counterparts, they are so green, and only one building is so bad in the market, then you have a discount. And actually, this is really real. It's not like speculation. There's a paper. They started after financial crisis, 2009 financial crisis. They say in good times, green buildings have the premium. Bad times, all people were losing money in bad times, financial crisis, but they found the resilience are much higher than in the down times, even for green buildings. So if all the buildings were losing tenants, the green buildings are relatively better. They are keeping a little bit more tenants. That paper was very famous. And now I think there's some other papers after this pandemic. So that's a financial crisis. They are more resilient. After pandemic, healthy buildings, they are more resilient because now work from home, right? All the CBD buildings, they become vacant. But if you compare those relatively better, greener, and healthier buildings, they can keep more tenants. For example, the tenants, they still need to keep some office in downtown. They will go to healthy buildings. And then finally, physical risk. So this, for example, Miami or Boston Seaport. That's how will be our project, final project. And PSAT number 2, if you happen to be in a place that maybe next 10 years you will have flooding risk will be something higher, then you really have this, right? You have this physical risk. But if you are in highland, you are on highland, that's not so much for you, but you still are exposed to this type of risk. Okay, now we have the entire, almost we close the loop. We almost close the loop from the tenants, from the owner, then go to owner. Then we will soon go to the developer.
Just about the previous slide about the risk. So I think it makes perfect sense when you're developing a building for the risk to be lower. But what if you're buying a new building and retrofitting it to become a sustainable building?
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, you reduce the risk, right?
Or increase it, if you have to make a capital investment to renew the building, and you don't know if it's going to work out.
That's a good point. Actually, another case study that Zhengzhen will teach will be a private equity who have very strong expertise in retrofitting old buildings. And that company understand they have the special expertise, they are specialized, they have energy team, etc., better than other teams. So they are more brave to do this kind of business. For others, they don't know, as you said, there's a higher risk. But for some, they have done so many buildings, then they have, okay, we will buy this building, we know we will get things done.
Explain the higher resilience during downtimes, because you mentioned earlier that these buildings have higher rent. So, I'm a company and our employees are not coming to work because of COVID. Wouldn't I just choose to buy or rent a lower cost building instead?
So for the greener, it's pandemic, the tenants really value healthier indoor air quality, for example. So they will shrink their office space. For example, at first they rent a lot of space in Boston downtown. Now they don't need because 80% of the employees, they don't come in every day. So they shrink or they move to a smaller space. And then when they move to smaller space, they have more choices and they will go to greener and healthier buildings. So that's why those buildings, they are more resilient, but other brown buildings and the bad buildings, they lose totally, completely all the tenants. Okay, now, there's a table in your reading. Please read. So to summarize, why green buildings have higher asset value? Remember, asset value good for owner and also for the developer because developer will sell at a higher value. Basically, higher rent, higher occupancy, lower turnover always keep the tenants. Thus, delta R go up. Lower operational cost, delta O1 go down. That's for the owner perspective. And the lower expected return, that's cost of capital in the denominator becomes smaller. Altogether, think about the cash flow. Think about this discount equation, higher WTP, willingness to pay, WTP. And then if the owner has a higher willingness to pay, then the developer is so happy because they can sell at a good price. So this is a summary of the empirical studies. Then you always say it's not like only one value. That will be stupid. Always a range, right? Rental, sometimes no premium at all, 0 to 23%. Mean 6.3%. And occupancy also like big range. So which give you a sense and operational cost. See, I think someone, you just asked a question about operational cost go up and down. So it's very clear, inconclusive. Sometimes goes up, sometimes goes down. It's very hard to say. Definitely will go down or go up because ventilation, for example, like those things. So then you can say it's a negative 14 to positive 25%. So this is a big range. And overall sales price may be some 0 and 43%, but with a mean, optimistic view, with a mean still positive. So that gives you a very clear understanding is that you cannot think about this in the deterministic way, always positive, always negative, no. But in this way, it's a range. So this is a perfect time to talk about this again. Remember, in the intro section, I use this to show you how to connect economics and business, right? Economics, we will show a lot of statistics and the overall big picture like that. But business, we look at the cases. This company, this building, that building. So just now we showed all these parameters. All these parameters has a range. Means they always have a distribution, not one point. The cost side have a distribution, the benefit has a distribution. Cannot think in a very, very narrow way. And then those guys, those companies or buildings, they are distributed in this space in this way. So you understand some think green building is a very, very good business. Some, they don't think so. Because for some of them, the cost is much higher and the benefit is so low. No rent premium at all. Maintenance cost is much higher. Then you will end up here, right? High cost, no benefit. Why am I going to do this? So stupid. Doesn't make sense. So then business case, maybe we look at this one. This is a business case. So no matter whether it's a so brilliant investor or this market condition so good or this just have a very good skill or expertise, no matter what, higher benefit, lower cost, go green, no brainer. So this will be a case. But you cannot use that to apply to all, say, because that guy thinks this is a good deal, all of us, we need to go down. No. So be clear in this thing when we look at a specific company or specific case and think about the range. And the range is confirmed by the scientific study. This is the range. Okay, so now we already went through all this. I think that's all very clear that the green building case is the same pro forma, but I already changed the numbers. I already changed the numbers in the way that now we use mean value, then higher rent and lower vacancy like that, higher sale price and the lower discount rate. Then you will see clearly the PV, NPV become higher, right? The greener is the new one, become higher because all the parameters I use the mean value. So all this. Now it's very clear if you were the owner, in this case, just in case that you are the median person, you are the average person in that space, then you have this green NPV. Another brown building, baseline building, have this brown NPV. A green NPV much higher than a brown NPV. So if you are owner, you are buyer, you look at two developers, one is building a green building, this green, the other is brown building, all else equal. Are you willing to pay higher price to buy the green building? From a rational perspective, yes, right? Brown building NPV is so small, green building is so big, buy the green building, and you're willing to pay higher price. So that's basically the rationale. Then I show this again, and again, I have my paper here, just want to highlight. It's a little guy here, but they summarize all the papers, overall price premium of 7.6% of these papers, and you give the numbers. So this is still average person. Remember, average. And actually, I think for my purpose, zero. No price premium in China's case. That's, I think, China, your point, China market failure maybe. So my paper is a data point of 0, but on average, still positive. So that's the point. And finally, we go to the developer. From the, remember we have the tenants just now showed up here, and the owner showed up here. We could, go here, and then not go here. This is a chain. The chain is the following. Okay, if an average person, we have a higher sale price, then the developer understand, if I anticipate that later I can sell higher price of a green building, but it's not like, now I must build, because it still benefit the cost analysis. It's no free lunch, not like green building higher price, but you also higher cost. Construction cost, upfront cost may be higher. So you need to compare the upfront construction cost and the later sale price. If the sale price, go up 5%, and further the construction cost is 10% higher, then no, still no. So that need to compare. Why is higher? I think this no question why the construction cost is higher, because we need more technology like the insulation, passive house, more advanced HVAC, ventilation, and some lighting, new technology things. So those are all actual things you need to invest and you need to buy. Here, from studies, again, you will find this in your report. They said for new buildings, 0% to 12.5%, wide range of the cost premium. And then there's a little bit higher for the retrofit, because you need to retrofit from a very old building cannot control. Question, why there's any chance that there's no cost premium? That's like a free lunch thing. Why? Why in some cases, the green buildings even have no cost premium? Any guess on this? Okay, please.
Maybe just having tax governments
Okay, but the actual thing, if you have some free money from the government, yeah. But besides that, passive house, you need to invest more. That's very clear. Yeah.
I think there are some methods that are very easy to adopt, like you change from traditional lighting to LED lights. The expense is not very high.
Not very high. Okay.
Due to the progressive like, technology.
Yes. Do you have any thought?
Technology advancement to make it cheaper.
But cheaper to zero?
More stringent permitting, which actually requires them to kind of reach closer to green building scale.
But more stringent permitting will get higher cost, I guess. Not material cost, but you will delay some.
That you assign a third-party contractor to do the construction, then you pay them a fee, but the fees technically lower than the benefit that you recoup.
Okay, if you can get a very good contractor say, I don't care, I can do this for you without any actual cost. Do you have any thoughts?
I was going to echo what Carlton was saying, which was, I think it's a question of definition. So if you're building in Boston and they're requiring you to do LEED certifiable, your baseline is green. If you're defining that as a cost premium, it's sort of an error in the way you're defining that. But the technology is still advanced versus a more basic building, and therefore premium cost.
Okay. So yes, I think you already covered most of this. But I just want to give you a sense, but I'm not an expert on building technology, I need to say. And we have Carlos, not you, but another Carlos, a guest instructor, later will come after midterm to teach 3 sustainable design sessions. I know some of you are very good designers. So, but the conceptual level is the following. For the green design, sustainable design, there are at least two levels. One called passive sustainable design. The other is active sustainable design. Passive design sometimes is really free. Really, you don't need money. For example, you just you use nature. You use nature, for example, your orientation, your window, and you just do this daylight and orientation of you have better design. Now fit into this natural environment, you get better like airflow in the building, and it doesn't cost too much money. But active design, you need mechanical systems. You need HVAC, you need all the mechanical systems that purchase the energy. If you cannot just use the nature to give a very cool environment, then you have to do AC. If you do AC, you spend money. So if you can use nature in the best way, in some cases, then they have 0% cost premium because you just use nature. But if you have all these mechanical things, then you just spend money. But you said very clearly, that's true, cost premium is going down on average. It's going down if you look at the time series. For example, later, in Zhengzhen's case, the Winthrop Center passive house cost premium, when they designed that time, they made the decision, they found 3 to 10% when planned, the cost premium. And when they implemented, because they need to get a permit and it takes some time like that, and after 1 or 2 years, 1 to 3%. Because this technology become more mature, and they may find another good contractor construction team, they build other passive house, they accumulate some expertise, they know how to do this. At first, they didn't know. They need to send people to Germany to learn, because that is a Germany thing. They send team to Germany to learn how to build a passive house. And later, in Massachusetts, more and more passive house projects, like 10 or 20, then it's more like matured technology. And fortunately, they go 1, 2, 3. So the key point is the following. It's still dynamic. Think about this, a function. The cost premium is a function of skills, as I said, more and more skills. At first, the sustainable design is not easy. They need to hire an external design firm to do so, the developer, like a KPF, like our Carlos instructor. And then later, they did several passive house or other things, and they have their internal team to do so. No need to hire. Innovation, more new technology pop up, and the new technology become cheaper and cheaper. Supply chain. You need new materials. Now it's disruptive because of pandemic. Then you're so hard to ship the parts from the supplier to you. Then you wait with a new window, new window. And if the supply chain become better, that can reduce cost. So that's all the things. So you need to think about it in a very dynamic way. You cannot say, oh, always 5%, always 10%. Okay, so now I'm going to summarize the market side. So this cash flow chart always will show up in my class to remind you how market works. 3 stakeholders, end user as tenant, owner and developer. And this is the chain process. The chain is this one and this one, they are chained. This one and this one, they are connect, right? One stakeholder's cost is the other stakeholder's benefit, and the other one's cost is the other's benefit. If this work should go this way, not like developer speculate, oh, if I build this and it will be so popular I can sell. No, it's from the market fundamentals, from the end users they are willing to pay, and then trigger the investors, then trigger the developers. That's the point. Okay, so then we put all the things in the 3 bubbles as a recap. That's we start every item in here and there, and all the things. So that's the point. Now, I still have some minute left. I'm going to touch on a little bit on how market may fail. Now, we cannot be always say, oh, market is perfect. If we have these 3 stakeholders all chained together, everything will happen. No. Market may fail in some circumstances, and this is a market failure. So basically, it's a McKinsey very famous report. I'm not sure whether you read that or not. They raise a question, this McKinsey report. This is a so-called energy efficiency dilemma or something, energy efficiency curve. In this one, they point out many these building energy efficiency technologies, they are NPV positive. Means additional cost, but later we'll see more energy, additional benefit, and always the benefit will exceed cost. So that's why when you look at the cost, they are negative, means positive NPV. So all the things are negative. Cost means negative lifetime cycle. Upfront, of course, you have cost. But if you think about life cycle, negative cost, positive NPV. NPV positive. For example, I'm not sure it's too small, but it's a retrofit HVAC system, residential, commercial, and retrofit buildings, water, heating, and this and that, all here. Only a few, like very expensive ones, are positive cost. Then they ask question. Since it's so good, and NPV positive, why? It's not that easy. Not all buildings suddenly start to retrofit themselves. No, right? Why not all the market suddenly becomes all green? No. So why those opportunities were left there without exploited? So that's their question. So they raise this question. The point is the following. We always say PPP, all intersection, all win-win-win solution. No. In many circumstances, they will diverge like 3 bubbles, 3 balloons will just diverge, and with no intersection at all. No intersection. If you care about the planet, you lose money. If you only look at people, you cannot make profit. If you make profit, you cannot protect the environment. So like that. So then 3 major market failures. But today I will just start the first one, which is information asymmetry, the information problem. Then the information problem, and the second one is a split incentive, next class, split incentive. Tenants and the landlords, they're fighting with each other. That's the problem. Third will be externality, that policy need to step in. The city mayor need to step in, the government need to step in. So 3 major market failures make your hope become like this, no solution. Then, of course, we are not so like completely pessimistic. We understand, we know this. After we know this, we try to fix the problem. We try to fix those market failures with some new innovative ways, right? So that's we have different ways to fix. Let's look at information problem first. So the point is, all of you, of course, I have been doing this research for more than 10 years. Now you are in a class, a core class, then you learn this. All of us, we are more sophisticated than the average market person, every person in the market. Because we are here learning this in a professional way, in a sophisticated way in the classroom. But not all the home buyers, they understand this. We cannot assume. Everyone understands immediately, oh, green is good. So that's why if we have supply, but if the demand for the consumers in the market, they don't understand the benefit, they won't have a higher willingness to pay. Then that will lower the demand. That's a problem. So, but how to educate the market? Is market dysfunction? Then how we educate the market? So that's one paper I did back to 2016. So at that time, China's green building market, residential market, was so immature. And only me, like a professor, we knew. But the common buyers, they didn't understand. They didn't understand. Especially in that market, the first problem is housing affordability. So high housing price. They cannot buy a small house. How can I have so luxury sound about the environment? That's not my business. How I have a luxury sound about this environment protection? No. And then they also don't understand. They say, oh, green building is just good for the society, but it's nothing to do with me. How can I benefit from this? No idea. And then I sent my student teams. To, well, there were some scattered around the green building, new green building project, I say, very first movers of the developers. They built some green buildings here and there, but very few. I sent students to 3 green buildings and 3 non-green buildings, which like paired together. 1 green building and nearby find a very similar location, but non-green building. I sent my students to those complex, and then to interview the residents, for the green building residents and the non-green building residents, interview them. And I interviewed them, our students interviewed them, and we found out for the green buildings, they have really a higher willingness to pay for greenness, for this energy efficiency, this 300 RMB per square meter, like that. So we ask questions, hypothetical question. If you later have another chance to buy a house, buy a greenhouse, are you willing to pay a higher price for the next one? We ask that question. The green building residents, they understand the benefit. They have this willingness to pay. The brown building residents, they didn't have any idea. They don't have, well, also have a low. And then the following is the same. We show an information card. We educated them. Green building is not just about carbon, it's about this and that. Daylight, the indoor air quality, your energy bills, and this and that. And we had some technology students who they really measured that. And then we asked them again. Then you can see it jump up for these non-green building residents. That they got some new information, they adjusted their understanding of this, and they have a higher willingness to pay. So that was my paper. Just a small example to show information really matters. But of course, it's so all hypothetical question. That's a limitation of this questionnaire approach, right? When you say so, maybe you won't do so. But anyway, it's a first try to show so many people, they are less educated about the benefit of the green building. And if you give them information, they will change their mind. This is very true for real estate, because as we understand, these are some different goods, some so-called experience good. That's some good you cannot immediately judge whether good or not. You need experience, right? And even for some like building materials, credence good means even you experience, you don't know, unless you are expert, because you cannot say, you cannot feel. So that's even further like information became a problem. But real estate is very clear. The buildings, indoor air quality, and energy efficiency, if you only look at the brochure of the marketing materials from the builder, you cannot just really believe in that, or you will be cheated. And after you live in that house for a few years, you really understand that. So that's called experienced good. What other examples of experienced good can you think of? Experience good, besides real estate. Do you have another example in the real world that you must experience? Otherwise, you don't understand the quantity. That brings a lot of uncertainty when you decide. Food, yes.
You can't judge it
until you eat. I think another example is people, right? I have a lot of experience people, right? So now we are in the admission cycle. Right now, I worked to midnight the day before to review all the applications to our MCP DASP program. And then later we will admit SRED students. So now all MIT professors are busy with reviewing all these applications. And then we can only read, teach CV and a statement and a transcript and these 3 reference letters. However, a person is the experience good, right, in the labor market. So basically, if you only read CV and the reference letter, so good, this person is perfect. So good, all the A's and all this and this and all this and all awards of 10 publications like that. However, when you admit that person, later you found out, oh, not that true. So I feel it's very hard to judge a CV. That's an experience good. So we really prefer, if I want to admit a student, I really prefer to have a short period of together, being together, work together on something. Then we can experience, and that student can also experience whether I'm a very bad professor or a very okay professor. So real estate is the same thing. So that's why some developers, some real estate people, they take advantage of this information asymmetry because the buyer is so blended, especially common people, then they do greenwashing. I think you heard this word so many times, greenwashing, greenwashing, greenwashing. So greenwashing means is you are not green building, but you just plant some trees. And you put some plants on your balcony, say, oh, so green, that's green building. So that's a greenwashing. It's no energy efficiency. And you just see the image or you print this brochure, fancy marketing materials, so green. That's called greenwashing. Greenwashing is not good, but why greenwashing exists, we understand because of information problem. That's a information problem. So if you have a very good CV, but actually you are not that good, you are greenwashing yourself, right? That's a way. And some smart professor will find out. Okay, my research to study greenwashing in Beijing, but I won't go into details because we are going to run out of time. But point is, at that time, even earlier than that paper, the information paper, China had no green certificate at all, no green certificate. All the developers, they self-advertise. They say, oh, my building is a green building is so good, and you will have so much benefit from my building. So for those developers, they self-advertise without any certificate, without any data. And in that time, the market was a pre-sale stage, no building at all, vacant land. And they are building the foundation, maybe, a big hole. And then they're also good at look at the pictures. Then the consumers got so excited and bought the building. And then the buyers got into the building, and after a few years, found out the energy bill is so high and not good at all, or plastic bag problem. All the things happened. And then when they resell their buildings, they resell their houses on the resale market, the developer is already gone. Disappeared, I don't know where the developer is. And then it turned out that they couldn't sell any premium. So the first round of buyers will become victims of this, right? For later they found out, but the first round of the buyers got this problem and got stuck in. So the key point of this, I'm gonna only show 2 slides right now, for the sake of time. Understand this, because there's no market signal, there's no market certificate. For example, this called the word selection. That's a very important economic concept. Suppose we have a good developer, we have a bad developer, not bad developer, average developer. We have a green developer, and we have an average developer. We know that when we build a greenhouse, there's a cost premium, right? It's not free lunch. Suppose every house they 0.95 million, and the green is 1.25 million. That's the cost. And if the buyer are so sophisticated and we have a very good certificate system, then they can tell the buyer not blinded. They can tell the green building is good and the non-green building is not good. Then they have willingness to pay. This one is higher, this one is lower. So you can clearly say at this time, this one is higher than the cost. So that gives incentive for the builder to build, right? Because they know they can sell at 1.4 million, the cost 1.25 million. And this market also exists because some people, they don't care and they don't want to invest, that's fine. They go to this market. So it's some differentiated market exists that green building will exist. However, if it's so blended, no certificate like that, and then the buyers couldn't tell which one is which. They couldn't tell which one is built green, which one is not green, and they don't want to be cheated. They are not so, then say, okay, I don't know. They just say that. They just say, how can I believe? I just put them together, it's no difference. Then they have 1.2 million. So this creates a problem that will de-incentivize this part, right? Because now all put together, they are willing to pay the same 1.2 million no matter whether you are green or not, because I don't know. Then for this part, they don't want to build. They have no incentive because the cost exceeds the benefit. So that will crowd out the good guys. And only the lemons, the bad guys will stay in the market. So that's a problem. To solve that problem is certification. So I want to give credit. Of course, many people, they are criticized. LEED has this problem, that problem. But the fundamental, the first order benefit of this certification is to solve this information asymmetry. At least you have a certificate instead of China's case in 2012, nothing. You just promote by yourself. You have the certificate on the wall, and you show this the LEED platinum and the LEED gold. Then you understand this one is not a cheater. So that's to help with the information asymmetry. And then this is just the first impression of what's the problem of information problem and how to solve. And when they solve, they feel, oh, the limitation of this, limitation of this, limitation of this, and they improve gradually this certification. But the first order thing is this good thing. This is a public good. The government provide, or the non-NGO provide this to help the buyers to be not so blended and became like this and kill this good market and to solve this adverse selection problem. Okay, I'm gonna stop here.